Hey everyone, this is the introduction video for the comparative study. I will explain all of the components of the comparative study and walk you through how to do it and all of the little tiny details and things that you'll need for the comparative study. So you got to this video, so you probably know how to get here, but you may have clicked on another link. I want to show you where all of the comparative study materials are. So in Schoology, if you go to the white projects folder, oh, no, just kidding. Go to the pink essential course resources folder, and there is a whole comparative study folder, just like for the process portfolio and exhibition. And at the very top here are these slides that I'm going to go through with you today. There is a ton of good information in these slides, and you will probably have to refer to and rely on these slides throughout the research that you do and completion of this. Underneath it will be a link to this video that you got today. I haven't put it there yet, obviously. And then there's also the template. Now, most of you copied it and shared it with me a long time ago, like at the beginning of the year almost. But some of you never copied and shared it. So those of you that have not, please open it, make a copy of it, and then share it with me. And these are also just some helpful things here, resources to use. But your really main helpful stuff is going to be the template as well as the video. This video and this presentation is the most important. So we are going to get started with this presentation so I can explain to you what the comparative study is. It's an external assessment, which means I do not assess it. So it's going to be sent off to IB to assess, not me. What you'll do is choose 3 artworks by 3 different artists from 3 different historical contexts and art periods to compare and contrast. You'll create a digital presentation that's 10 to 15 slides, and that's for both HL and SL students. And you will also, if you're an HL student at the end, y'all will choose next year whether you're HL or SL. You will do an additional 3 to 5 slides, which are at the end of this presentation too, which I will briefly go over, but we'll save that for next year. And then you also need a list of sources. I'm saying the minimum on this is 10 sources, but that's a low number for the fact that you have 3 different artworks to look at. All right, so the weight of this in the overall IB grade is 20%. This is how the breakdown of the grading goes for it. So you're going to, and I'll walk you through this in further detail, identify and analyze formal qualities, and analyze and understand the function and purpose, analyze and evaluate the cultural significance, make comparisons and connections, and then not listed. So E is actually, you don't have to do any slides for E. What E means is you have used presentation and subject-specific language throughout the presentation. You have shown that you know a lot about art vocabulary. That's what that means. And then the last one, as I said before, is only for HL students, and that's at the end of year 2, so we won't worry about that for now. The structure of this is here, and this will be a good resource for you as you're building your slides. But this gives you an idea of the number of slides you should make for each thing. And this is the ultimate goal of looking at each piece of artwork. So you're trying to link the artist and the artist world to the audience and the audience world. So the art is how you're doing that. So you have to pull in the information from, what this artist, what the context of their life was. So I just really like this visual here to help you see that. So let's talk about theme. This theme should loosely relate in some way to the theme for the exhibition. It doesn't have to, it can be very loose. But you have to compare your artwork to the artwork that you choose. So you do need to be somewhat thoughtful in your theme choice. So there is a list of examples on this website here that you can feel free to take a look at. But here's some examples on possible themes. Graffiti. I have a couple of really cool graffiti books too. If you're interested in that, I will let you borrow them, or I'll take, I'll scan them for you so that you can have them. Images of death, offensive art. I have some good research stuff on that too. Ideals of beauty. You'll see some examples of that in here. The role of the self-portrait. There's tons of things that you could use for that. And appropriation. So these are examples. You could come up with something completely new. The first step in this process is to choose your artwork. So that is where we will start today. You need to have your artwork chosen by April 20th. So between now and April 20th, this is the besides working on your painting project, you're just going to be choosing your artwork. Now, if you're watching this after April 20th, you should have already picked your artwork and you can move past this point. But think about what your artwork choice says about you and why you want to learn about this artist. And here are my top resources for you in choosing an artist. So during class, the very first day after you read this video, all you're going to do that hour is look through all of these different 7 options and see if you can come up with some ideas, generate some ideas from that. So the first one is my notable artist presentation. And this presentation is kind of always growing and changing. I just started adding more to it, and I'm just going to keep on adding more as the years go on, and it'll just get better every year, right? So the very first slide are some art movements or art appreciation websites, so you can take a look through those. If you're like, I don't know what an art movement is, a lot of those explain different types of art movements. So that's a good starting point. And then as you look through the whole presentation, there's just an artist and one or a couple of websites or sources that you could use to look at that artist and one of their artworks that kind of represents the artwork it is that they make. Now, like I said, this is by no means complete. I just went through some of my art classes that I've taught over the years and pulled images that I've taught about or that we've looked at from whatever artists. So like I said, it's growing. If you have an artist to add to this, let me know. All right. The next one on the list is Great Art Explained on YouTube. I would like you to watch at least one of the videos on here, if not more. So there are these lovely 15-minute videos, the Great Art Explained in 15 minutes, that talk about different artworks, and you can click on it. Like this one would be a great one. This has some great artworks in it. You could watch that, learn more about those. I watched a good one on Frida the other day, this one here, the 2 Fridas. I watched the Picasso's Guernica one, which is also another excellent one. I've seen the Andy Warhol one too, very good. So there's tons of videos in here for you to get a good starting point from artwork. So you could watch the Frida one and then say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to look at more of Frida's artwork now that I've watched this and I know more about her. So you're not going to choose maybe this painting for it, but you'll choose another one, and then maybe you'll refer to this painting when you're talking about her other painting in your comparative study. So that's something that you can kind of do too. We'll talk more about that as we go down the road here. Next up is my collection of art magazines. So if you click on that, it will open up this. I have some different paintings that I've been scanning in and adding them here. So they just have the artist name and then the painting on it if you're interested in looking at any of those artists. But all of these are different magazines with artworks in them. So this magazine is all about Edward Hopper. This magazine has Peter Max, and then also has some other paintings, things. There's an Elizabeth Murray and then a Van Gogh in here. So all of these art magazines are really cool resources to look through. Okay, next on the list. Of course, you have the library's website and using Gale and Britannica. And Art 21 is another great website, and it has a lot of artists. You just go click on the artists here, and it's got a huge index of artists, and you can look through their work. The next thing is to go to the University of Michigan Art Museum or the Detroit Institute of Art or a local college that is holding a art show, and just go look at art and be inspired by art. So if it's available to you, do it. If it's not, because I know we're in COVID times, then you're not going to be able to. Normally, when it's normal time, I take everyone on a field trip to the University of Michigan Museum of Art. I like to just let everybody roam and kind of see what artwork speaks to them. So if you have that opportunity, you can use that as, potentially choosing artwork from a museum around us. And then the last one is consider using cultural artifacts and art that was produced in non-Western cultures. So when you're thinking about like the Loca Purusha, for example, you could use African art, you can use Asian art. So there's so much that you could do to tie in different cultures together. So think about that and how it speaks to you. All right, let's get back to the presentation here. So like I said, you'll need a minimum of 10 references, but you should have more. The research requires a lot of reading and annotating, and when you have at least 10 sources and you've read them and you're starting to understand this artwork more, I want you to choose whether you're going to do the feminist, analytical, or modified formalist methods on these 3 artworks. So you've got to have the same lens for each artwork. If you're going to do feminist all the way through. Now, you're still going to have to talk about the form, even though you are doing the feminist. Your primary focus would be on the emotion, but you're also paying attention to the rules of the comparative study and making sure that you're talking about the artwork and the elements and principles and all the formal qualities. So, but you'll choose one. So I've got them all in here for you. I've got the analytical. I have the feminist method general rules. I did not put the questions to ask in here. It just dawned on me, and I'm going to make a note for myself to add those in here so that you can have the questions that we asked together in class about the artwork in there too. And then you have the modified formalist approach, which we practiced all of those in class. All right, we have hit the point of the presentation where I'm going to walk you through a comparative study. The first slide is going to be an introduction or title page. I think they just do one. Yep, I have one example of what a title page might look like. There are also some more comparative studies in the comparative study folder. I'll put some examples in there for you of other students' comparative studies so that you can see other title pages. So notice on the title page that the person has a little brief introduction, and then they've written all the information next to each of the art objects. The next thing you'll have is a visual analysis, as I said before, on all 3 artworks. So you'll do it separately. You'll group them all together. So you'll do artwork number 1, visual analysis, and then artwork number 1, cultural significance, and the context of it. So you'll do it all together, and then you'll move to the second artwork, analyze that, and then move to the third artwork, and then you'll do your comparisons. So the visual analysis is where you're looking at the elements and principles of design. And this is what you will do for the analysis of each artifact. So you will look up the artwork and get all of this information, and then from that, you'll fill it in with your research, and then from that, you'll begin to formulate your feminist critique or your your analytical method, critique, whatever it is. But this information all has to be in those slides about every artifact. So here's some tips for interpreting artwork that I think are important to think about. And that's why I'm asking these, because especially when we get into this area toward the bottom of H and below, the function and purpose, we really need to know what the artist's life experience were that informed them, the components of the image, what it signifies, who was the original audience, the connection between the image and the viewer. Okay, so we're thinking about all these things while you're looking at art. Here's some examples of just formal analysis slides. This is all in the presentation available for you to look at your leisure. I'm not going to go through them too slowly because I have a lot to get through here and I want you to not have to watch a video for a long period of time. So I'm just showing you some examples of what other students have done with the formal analysis. The next part you'll get to is the evaluation of the cultural significance of the artwork. And I do want to mention that function and purpose and cultural significance, some students choose to put those both on the same slide, while other students will do a formal analysis slide, a cultural significance slide, and a function and purpose slide. So it's kind of up to you how you group it. You can have 3 slides for each artwork, that's fine, or you could just have 2 slides for each artwork. Either is fine. So for the cultural significance, what was happening when the artwork was made? Talk about the art movements, other artists and artworks that were popular during this time, things that were going on in the artist world, so finances, fame, were they popular at the time their artwork was made, or were they like Van Gogh and, no, they weren't really appreciated in their time. So that's what the cultural significance is. And then the function and purpose they can be different. There's a lot of different functions of artwork, and there's a list there of possible potential functions that your artwork could serve. So as I said, a lot of non-Western artwork that if you chose to do that is functional, like African art always or oftentimes has a purpose beyond just being the art by itself and being decorative. It often has like a ritual function. So there's all of these different functions that the artwork could have. And there's a little thing down here that explains more about that as you're getting to this point. So don't do this. Obviously, you're not going to do this all at once. But when you get to this point, watch read this thing here regarding that. Here's examples of the analysis and the cultural significance all going into one. This student just had a cultural significance slide. This student had a cultural significance and purpose and function on one slide, along with comparing it to the artwork around the same time. Function and purpose was separated here. Cultural context and then the function and purpose were separated once again. With this one, the cultural context and were all separated. The function and purpose and the cultural significance here were both left together on the same slide. And that function purpose was separated. All right, so that's basically the first part of the comparative study. You're doing your title slide, and then you're analyzing the formal elements, the cultural significance, and the function and purpose of each of the 3 artworks in about 9 slides, anywhere from 6 to 9 slides. Then you come to the comparison part, which should be between 3 and 5 slides. You should be comparing everything that you just looked at. So this part actually is the easiest. It's just setting up your stuff and figuring out how you want to lay it out, because you've already done all the work. You've already done all the research. So there's no more researching. It's just comparing and contrasting all the information that you already have. So this is the IB's example of what it could look like to set that up. Here's a student using that, implementing that in their own artwork. or their own comparative study. Here is another student that is using the same thing. The IB likes this little visual. Here's another student using sort of like a timeline with other little boxes. More. I'm just going to kind of flip through it here. Some of these are from the IB and some of them are my past students. These are IB ones here. They're also looking for the design of it to look nice too, that you've got it all laid out nicely. And then last, but certainly not least, is you'll have to have your sources, and it's got to be a full MLA citation. So here's how it breaks down. Make sure that you've copied the template already. I mentioned that earlier. Choose your 3 artworks by April 20th. So you'll have to share out in class that day what artworks you've chosen. If you don't have artworks chosen that day, that will be the thing that I make you leave class to go do, because it has to be done by that day. Because we are going to start actually working on the comparative study after that time. And it's a lot of work. I don't want you to push it off. The next part is to use the choose and study your artifacts slide and actually begin doing your 3 function, purpose, cultural significance, and formal analysis slides for each one. And that should be done around mid-May. And then there will be a point in May when I'll say, okay, your research and your first 6 to 9 function, purpose, cultural significance, and formal qualities slides are due. And now we're going to move on to the comparison part. And that's going to go until the end of the school year. So that's what you're looking at for work on this. When you turn it in at the end of the school year, it will be your rough draft. You will have not gotten any feedback on it from me. So we will have had our first meeting at the beginning where you share with me your art pieces. We talk about what your plan is for it. And then we will not meet again until the beginning of your senior year. And I'll give you feedback on your rough draft and give you any edits and last minute changes to make. So that's what that looks like. Here are some frequently asked questions at the bottom. Does it have to go along with your theme? As I said before, it should somewhat go along with your theme if you know you're going to do HL. It doesn't have to be like directly connected, but in some ways it has to connect. Can you use any type of media? You need to consider the context of the artwork when you're choosing your artwork. Like, you're not going to be able to do three regular paintings from 3 British dudes made all in the same time period. So you have to consider the variety of art that you're getting. There's no limit to how new or old it can be. But think about how picking a more contemporary artist might leave you with not enough information. So that wouldn't necessarily prohibit you if you're a proactive person and you're capable of finding out information on your own, and you find a really cool artist that you like online and you're not finding that much info about them. But let's say you email them and you find their website and you email them and they email you back. Okay, that could be an option. You could actually get in touch with the artist and maybe interview them. But other than that, like if you're not willing to do that kind of work, I would say to choose an artist or an artwork that is fairly well known. I mean, not necessarily the artwork, but at least the artist. Like you could pick a Frida painting that, people don't often talk about, and that might be fun to, dive into something that hasn't been looked at as much as other things. But try not to pick something that's too... it's going to be too hard for you to research. And then this is where the HL component comes in. You're going to make connections with your own art. And this is an example of a student doing just that. I think I only had one. Yeah. So I'll go over that more next year with just the HL kids. Y'all, I know this is a lot of information. Thank you for being patient and listening to this. The comparative study, the most important thing really is that you open up this presentation and really look through it and get to know what you're going to be doing in the comparative study. All right. You can go back to, if you're watching this for the first time, you can go back to today's post and read what it is you're supposed to do today.